There are artists who burst onto the scene before they're barely old enough to vote.
And there are others who come to it late in life.
Then there's Nina Irwin, who for most of her adult life has been able to make a living doing graphic design work and other assignments in the world of art.
4 years ago, after a trip to England to work on her master's degree in art history, Nina decided it was time to go for it as a painter.
And it hasn't taken long for her layered, dreamlike paintings in ceramics to be warmly embraced by both critics and buyers.
It was a snowy, cold Thursday night. We were expecting maybe 60 people, and we ended up with well over 120, maybe 140. It was tremendous. It was a beautiful show. It was an easy show for us. It had a tremendous flow. This sounds so corny, but the room was filled with love and admiration for Nina.
Oh my gosh, it was a fun show. And part of that was because of so many people. And then a lot of people knew each other, and it was like, party. To have a successful opening, it was kind of validating. It's like, well, I've always had some wonderful people supporting me, but not a lot. I turned 50 this last year, and I don't feel like, oh, I'm getting old and what am I doing with my life? I couldn't feel more different.
The Nina Irwin, striding toward her studio on the 5th floor of the Livestock Exchange building, has seen some impressive successes in the last few years. Since at 46, she decided to go all in on her dream of making the kind of art that galleries like the Weinberger might choose to display. Surrounded by a sea of materials and her beloved art history books, she's almost got that master's degree. Nina comes here to work daily with a method that's largely her own.
I use inks and watercolors and oil paint. This is the way I do it. I hardly work with opaque colors. I'm going to imprint a form at the bottom of this piece. Sometimes I'll even sit on it. Sometimes I will go back in and take more paint and just kind of drip it onto my painting. I used a lot of black. Maybe add a little of that. I kind of like that.
All along, whether it was graphic design work, retail displays, or even once a billboard, Nina's skills with color have consistently been her strong suit.
It also happens to be what I enjoy most when I put down color on a panel and I truly just take that time to enjoy the brilliance or the subtleties and the relationships between colors. I find very, very interesting. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? I'm just very interested in the way materials react with each other. The big no-no is using watercolors with oil paints. And I was like, well, I have to. I have to use watercolors. So what I do is I just varnish in between. I create a layer of netherland in between these two that are never supposed to, the twain shall not meet.
Which brings us to layers, the other trademark of both her paintings and the ceramic work she's taken up too.
Layers of ideas, layers of color. I think of layers in the earth. I even think of our whole humanity as just a layer. Let's look at what happened over here. I like the way I'm seeing through the different colors. I like the way some things have pooled. My themes that kind of surface beyond the beauty of the world and the wonder of our gorgeous earth would definitely be what are we searching for in life? What is important? My very first show was a lot of this combining our natural environment with something man-made. It's definitely a topic that I turn to again and again. This is like a portal somewhere else, but it's also a portal to yourself, To me, the inner search in life is the search. You know, figuring out, what am I doing here? What is my purpose?
But the inner search isn't all about brooding, more along the lines of childlike wonder. So, no problem if you take off your shoes.
I can tiptoe around my stuff. I can even, sometimes I'll just full-fledged step on my stuff. When I'm in my socks, I just kind of layer myself onto my work. My work is fun, and I am having fun, and I'm doing a lot of things in my studio, but I am very concentrated. Hours go by and I have no idea. In fact, I really have to keep an eye on the time. I have this like cush time in my life where I don't have to constantly be, producing something very specific. Part of my whole process is just sitting there and thinking. I'm glad someone's not watching me and I'm not on the clock, like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm not sure, I don't know what I'm doing, but I know that a lot of the time I spend doing that adds up to better work, more thoughtful work.
And in the case of this most recent show, making substantially bigger work. While the themes and materials haven't changed much, 2016 did bring significantly larger pieces than ever before.
I think it was a little scary, which is good. It's good to push those boundaries. This was something she was trying out and seeing how it worked and what the reaction is. Now I'd like to see her stretch that horizon a bit.
One horizon checked off this time, poetry. Haiku in particular. Nina teamed with Greg Hack from the Kansas City Star to merge verse and visuals. It was a first for both.
It was just so much fun to do. His work is fantastic. He was able to really get into subjects in a really abstract way. It all started crisscrossing, and we weren't sure, where it separated. It very, very interesting. I love that part of the show. And we've gotten a lot of good feedback. People are very much enjoying the poetry works.
Though technically this is a solo exhibition, the gallery is also showing a few works by Jim Leedy. In a way, it's a vote of confidence that the new kid can hold her own with one of Kansas City's best.
This is her time. I mean, she's an emerging artist, and she's thriving. She's not playing. She's very serious about what she does. She's a natural.
I am so excited to share my work. I like being part of the history, and I also feel connected. I feel like I honor artists of the past by continuing to work hard and carry on this tradition. That's really important to me. It's mostly fun. You just have to be resourceful. I've had to find ways to apply my fun in order to get paid, and I have done that. So it's great, and I do work hard, but gosh, it is oh my God, it's almost always fun.
Nina's exhibition runs through February 25th at Weinberger Fine Arts in the Crossroads.
As you saw, Greg Hack's haiku plays a big role in that show.